Air Blue Flight 202 was on a regularly scheduled flight from Karachi to Islamabad. The captain of the flight was 61 years old Parvez Iqbal Chowdhury with 25,497 hours of flying experience. The first officer was Muntajib Ahmad, who was 34 years old and a former F-16 Pakistan Air Force pilot and had 1,837 hours of flying experience. At 7:41 in the morning, the aircraft started its takeoff roll for the destination Islamabad. When the aircraft was in its initial climb, the captain tried to test some knowledge of the first officer, and during that time the captain used unpleasant words in snobbish tones. This is maybe because he was way more senior than the first officer in both age and experience. Everyone feels humiliated if the senior is behaving like that, and the same thing happened to the first officer. That's why the first officer remained mostly silent throughout the rest of the flight, because he lost his self-confidence in front of captain. Subsequently, the first officer did not challenge the captain over any of his errors or violations. The aircraft started approaching Islamabad airport. At 9:33, the aircraft was at an altitude of 4,300 feet, and the crew was cleared by ATC to descend to 3,900 feet for ILS approach on runway 30, followed by a circling approach to land on runway 12. Then the aircraft came down to an altitude of 3,700 feet and established on the ILS with both autopilots engaged. The crew extended the landing gears. But the ILS approach was delayed because of the late visual sighting of runway 30 because of poor visibility. Then ATC told to the flight crew to report them after establishment of visual contact with left downwind runway 12. Now the aircraft need to circle to land on the opposite end of the runway, which is runway 12. To do so, crew needs to fly the aircraft manually. So the aircraft has to stay clear of the clouds but not below the minimum altitude. In the case of Islamabad, the airport is at an altitude of 1,667 feet, and the minimum altitude required for aircraft is 842 feet. So the aircraft should fly at the minimum altitude of 1,667 feet plus 842 feet. That will be 2,509 feet. At 9:37, as the aircraft was flying over the airport, the crew commanded the right turn and selected the altitude as 2,300 feet, and the aircraft started to descend. The crew violated the minimum descent altitude of 2,509 feet. At 9:38, the captain said that he was going for nav mode. Yet the aircraft kept on flying on heading mode. As the aircraft was more than 3.5 nautical miles from the runway centerline and was in the heading of 352 degrees, the crew commanded the left turn to 300 degrees through the autopilot. Now the aircraft was 1 nautical mile to the south of the prohibited area. Then the air traffic controller instructed them to turn left to avoid no-fly zone.
Pull up, terrain.
By now, the captain had become very nervous and displayed frustration, confusion, and anxiety in his behavior. At 9:40, ATC asked the crew if they were visual with the airfield. The crew did not respond to this question, and here the first officer asked to the captain. And then the crew informed ATC that they are visual with the airfield.
Pull up, terrain. Pull up. Terrain.
But the aircraft was not turning. Only the heading bug was being rotated towards left, but he forgot to pull the heading knob. The pilots were unsure of their geographical position and did not try to get help from ATC. Then the captain changed the lateral mode from nav to heading. In this time, current heading was 307 degrees. The aircraft started to turn the shortest way to the right towards Margalla Hills by default.
Pull up. Terrain. Pull up. Terrain. Pull up. Terrain.
The selected altitude changed to 3,700 feet and the aircraft started to climb while turning right. The captain re-engaged the auto thrust in climb mode and reduced the altitude to 3,100 feet.
Pull up. Terrain. Pull up. Terrain.
The roll angle was 25 degrees to the right. The captain applied full left side stick along with the 6 degree left rudder pedal input and the aircraft started to turn left. In this time, the altitude was 2,770 feet and was increasing. The aircraft climbed to 3,090 feet. The captain put in 52 degrees of bank to turn the aircraft and made some nose down inputs. So the aircraft pitched down and the speed increased because the auto thrust was on. So it commanded the engines to spool down to keep airspeed on the target speed. The aircraft started again to descend at a high rate. But in this panic, captain continued to move the heading bug without looking at it, but failed to pull the knob to activate.
Pull up. Terrain. Pull up. Terrain.
Then he started to make pitch down inputs with roll angle 30 degrees to the left. The pitch altitude was 15 degrees nose up and started to decrease. The altitude reached 3,110 feet and started to decrease.
Pull up. Terrain. Pull up. Terrain.
The high rate of descent at very low altitude could not be arrested and the aircraft flew into the hills and was destroyed. The aircraft struck Margalla Hills at the distance of 9.6 nautical miles from Islamabad. According to the investigation report, repeated pilot mistakes, cockpit confusion, and disregard for basic safety procedures caused the crash that killed 152 people. What is your opinion about the report? Please share. If you are watching until now, then please support us by liking the video and subscribing the channel. Thank you for watching.